Welcome to Registered, the podcast of the Catholic Register, where we'll be taking a look beyond the headlines of the stories that graced all of our platforms this past week. I'm Mickey Conlon, editor of the Register, alongside associate editor Quinton Amundson and reporter Luke Mandato. This week's episode is brought to you once again by Missions and Martyrs, the Catholic Register's new magazine celebrating 100 years of the Martyrs Shrine in Midland, Ontario. Go to catholicregister.org, Shrine 100, or call 1-855-441-4077, extension 1 to order your copy today. Well, it's one last week registered for Luke as he prepares for some well-earned time off, but for now, he's still out there. He's sifting his way through all the smoke over Toronto and much of Ontario, hunting down all the Catholic news that's fit to print. This week, unfortunately, some of that news that Luke brings us has to do with the situation in Venezuela. That, of course, would be the aftermath of the two earthquakes that devastated parts of the country and has claimed more than 4,400 lives so far. Luke, you had a chance to talk to some of the folks at Development and Peace, Caritas Canada, who, as they do whenever such disasters occur, step up to aid those in need. The situation on the ground is switched from a rescue operation to a recovery mission. So, Luke, what were you able to find out about DMP's role in helping out in Venezuela?
Yeah, thanks, Mickey. It's always nice to talk to DMP and Caritas Canada, and like you said, some of the work they do, most of the work they do, is really, really important and also very timely. So, I wanted to say, a big congrats to them right off of the bat. They were one of the first people. I know just as the news of these earthquakes were breaking, you and I were having a discussion about who we should speak to. And as soon as we looked it up, we saw that they were one of the first with an initial contribution of $50,000 to Caritas Venezuela to address some of that urgent emergency on the ground as that situation was unfolding. As you mentioned there, Mickey, we have now gone from the rescue efforts to more recovery efforts. And with that comes a lot of things. So I spoke with Stefan Vinhas. He's the Director of International Programs and Development for Development and Peace, Caritas Canada. And I think the main thing that our conversation sort of stressed over was, no two natural disasters or earthquakes are the same. So an earthquake in Nepal can affect that region very differently than a region like Venezuela, which has already been battling with some, economic challenges, political tensions. It came at such a bad time for this earthquake to happen in this country. And
a lot of there's never a good time for an earthquake, but
absolutely. We don't want to say that it's better to have it in one place than the other, but we've been covering Venezuela in some other capacities here at the Register these past couple of months already for some of the things going on in the country. So, they are still providing things like food and shelter and water and a lot of immediate medical resources. Their attention has kind of shifted to this initiative for, how do we look after the people that are struggling now, that have had their situations become that much worse. Talk about the poor infrastructure in Venezuela, the estimated destruction of property is somewhere in the billions. I think it was 6.7 billion at the time of our conversation. That's equivalent to around 6% of the country's entire GDP.
Yeah.
So when we look at things like that, there's obviously still a lot to do. And the conversation that we had, Mickey, is people read the headlines and they see that the rescue missions are over and they think that's kind of the end of the situation.
It's the start. It's the start, right? It's having to rebuild a new life for thousands upon thousands of people in the affected areas.
Absolutely. And things like mental health support, like we're now dealing with people that have lost loved ones, like you said, have lost their homes, lost their jobs. So during this period of mourning, Caritas Canada and Caritas Venezuela, as their on the ground partners, are really the first ones there to step in and try and help with some of those relief efforts.
Yeah, and you do say they've been dealing with their economic issues, which that's been for years. We've had a pretty a corrupt government in there that has basically driven millions of its own people out because they've got to go and I can't live in this country. I can't make a living. I've got to leave. So, and then of course, Donald Trump sent the troops in to get the guy who many blame for all the economic problems, Maduro and his wife, who's now sitting in a U.S. prison awaiting trial. So, uh, yeah, they've gone through so much.
Absolutely. And I think Quinton might find this interesting. One of the other things we talked about is the risk that, something I didn't even really pick up on that would be a risk, but human trafficking is apparently a major issue after events like this, because people that are doing human trafficking come into these ravaged communities. And it's a perfect opportunity where someone's weak, someone may have lost a loved one, they may be unattended, they don't know where to turn in a time like this. So another great benefit of development and peace and Caritas Venezuela is they're known in that region. They've done so much work in that region. I think he said that there was something like there's tens of thousands of volunteers that are on the ground that are known by the community. So even just having their presence there, it has been a big help for things like that as well.
That's wonderful to hear, Luke, because yes, after national disasters, that is a prime spot for human trafficking. Just out of the chaos, unfortunately, there are people that are very well positioned to abduct and extract, and causes a lot of mystery about what happened to my loved one. And naturally, you could just assume it could have been the calamity from the earthquake, but I think what you were touching on, the larger question, Luke, is that it's so good that development and peace, they have such deep roots all over the world, and they have a catalog of previous experiences and teachings that they could apply to be very effective in these recovery situations. Yes, no situation is ever the same, but there are just very core methods of practice that could be used to really make a difference in a short amount of time. And it's very good that development and peace is positioned where they are to deal with, of course, the emergency response, but now the longer work of the recovery.
And DMP, well, they're always looking for uh, more funds to help out there. They're going to, this is not, they come in, do their quick thing, and then they're out. They've got their partners on the ground and they're directing their support to their partners. So if there is anyone out there who's got a few extra bucks to like to share with that, uh, devp.org and follow the prompts and everything, and you can make a donation there, as you can to through the Archdiocese of Toronto and through ShareLife is where we will turn to next. So we've got a little bit of good news about ShareLife in our archdiocese. The ShareLife campaign has already raised more than 60% of its goal for 2026, and its 50th year. Quinton, you had a word with Arthur Peters about this year's campaign to date. Arthur is the executive director of ShareLife, the charitable fundraising arm of the Archdiocese of Toronto, supporting more than 40 agencies that help those in need. You also may remember Arthur was a guest registered back in March when ShareLife was marking its half century since its founding by Archbishop Philip Pocock, and it set off a year of celebrations. So, Quinton, what can you tell us about what's coming up?
Thank you very much, Mickey. Putting it in raw economic terms, they have raised 9.6 million of their 15.2 million goal. So if they continue this pace, it would just be so fantastic and fitting for yet another record to be set during their 50th year. And it really seems that people are remembering the legacy of that famous Archbishop Pocock announcement, that declaration of life, willing to step away, from the United Way and the Council of Charities to really set something up. And it's just because the ShareLife has really stuck to their values over the past 50 years, no matter what cause they're serving. And of course, it's so broad, from seniors to young parents to food security to vocations to international development and onward and soward. And it's just really an awe and gratifying for Arthur Peters in the 21 years that he's been the executive director, that these Toronto Catholics are just so dependable no matter what's thrown at them. Consider the records that were set during the global pandemic and the inflation crisis and postal problems. And yet these guys are just so unflinching in their support of ShareLife. It's quite something to behold, Mickey.
Well, it's kind of funny. It's almost every story we write on Share Life, and the first thing Arthur tells us, we've all written those stories, and he's like, "Oh, I'm amazed at the people of Toronto, the Archdiocese of Toronto, how they step up, you know." And there's always something going on. We feel it now, you know. It's not like the inflation isn't the big thing we talk about, but of course it will be because of all the gas prices going up again, which of course can only fuel inflation. You know, there's so much uncertainty in the economy, yet people step up and donate every year. So it's absolutely fantastic. So I guess I can tell everyone about this, a little foreshadowing of some of what we've got planned for the future. And we're going to be doing a special section in, I guess it's late September. And basically, it's going to be about why share life. And we're going to share a whole bunch of stories about why you should donate to Share Life. You know, we'll talk to some of the agencies, some of the people who have supported it over the years, and we'll hear their stories. And that'll give you an exact examples of why you should support Share Life. Well, they got a few things coming up in the time in between now and the end of September. So what is some of those things, Quinton?
Yes, thank you very much, Mickey. August 22nd at St. Michael's Cathedral Basilica at 10:30 a.m. Cardinal Leo is going to preside over the 50th anniversary Mass, and there will be a little reception in the courtyard. That'll be terrific. And there will be an open house coming up in early October at St. Augustine Seminary. And of course, there's been a great connection between Share Life and the seminary over the years. Details to come about the precise timing of that, but that'll be terrific. And we already know that Cardinal Leo has stepped up so much with voicing the video and a lot of the media elements that have been out there to broadcast the campaign. And Luke, I know you did that story for our first special section. Just the communications effort of the Share Life team, that goes a long way in making this campaign really meaningful to people on the ground. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, it's funny. Every time we talk about Share Life, it seems like so obvious, I guess the word is, that people donate because they're the ones doing this work and they do it in every capacity. So when we were taking a look ourselves at what stories we wanted to cover for this issue coming up, like the work is cut out for us. The agencies are there. They're doing the work day in and day out. The communications team is getting the word out there while their people work with those agencies day in and day out. So it's just fantastic. And, Peters always says he's surprised by the generosity, but I'm getting less and less surprised each time we see this record stretch, Quinton, because you'd be a fool. You'd be a fool to donate elsewhere. They cover absolutely everything. They're so supportive, and we're just very happy for them, and we're looking forward to that issue later on in September.
And the money, it's not like it just goes to Catholics; it goes to the whole community. So, right. Yeah, if you want to donate, again, sharelife.org, and you can easily find out, or through your parish, you can find out how they're stepping up to help Share Life. So. How about we shift gears to a story about two Canadian-born thinkers? Quinton, you're working on it right now, so you spoke to an author who believes a lot of good can come from combining the concepts of Jordan Peterson with those of the late Jesuit philosopher Bernard Lonergan. Most of us know who Jordan Peterson is, the formerly Toronto-based psychologist and professor at the University of Toronto, who shot to fame out of his crusade against, well, foremost gender ideology, but in general, the whole woke culture. So, what does Dr. Stephen Umbrello tell you, Quinton, how Peterson's modern battles relate to the great Jesuit thinker Lonergan?
Thank you very much, Mickey. They seem to be very strange conversational, bedfellows at first, but really they're tapping into a lot of the larger questions. They both ask questions about truth, how our values shape our perception, and the way that we could transcend the confusion of our world to living a meaningful life. And Peterson provides a lot of palatable language that really helps us to grapple with how we could achieve transcendence and better consciousness and how to live lives of more moral seriousness. And once we start grappling with these bigger questions, we naturally start to gear towards the eternal values of Christianity. But Lonergan, a guy that frankly is very unheralded, apparently one of the greatest thinkers of the 20th century, and I've read a few of his ideas and very impressive, but not very well known. But he just has a good baseline of how we could really channel what Peterson is providing us and focus it, discipline it, and ultimately lead us to a place where we could be in union with Christ. So that's pretty cool. How, I mean, these two guys could kind of complete each other in a sense. So I was just very fascinated by what I heard from Umbrello about, there are interesting links between this guy from the 20th century, this Jesuit Lonergan, with Peterson in the present. So, of course, I hope that all of our readers might very well want to learn a little bit more about Lonergan. And I, frankly, am very interested in reading more about Lonergan based on what I heard from Umbrella. But we all have our thoughts about Peterson. I mean, he has just been so ubiquitous in the culture over the past 10 years. I mean, it seems like he's just cast a big presence, whether you're in agreement or you have some questions about where he comes from. But Mickey, I mean, like, what a presence the guy has had for 10 years. What do you think about Peterson?
Well, it's the thing about him is you're a love him or hate him sort of person. You know, the people who are fans of his are like, wow, you know what? He may not be saying it in such simple terms, but these concepts are pretty simple and they're bang on. They're damn right. You know, look at his the one thing, and this is the one thing that I always get a laugh of because his critics always make the biggest joke about it is he says, when you wake up in the morning, talking to the young men, make your bed. Now you've accomplished something to start the day. And of course, you know that the critics think that that is just, what a bozo this guy is. And you know what? Let them think that. You know, you're starting your day. You have accomplished something. So it's pretty simple. So much of what he says is just basic common sense. You know, of course he's an academic, so he's not going to come out in general layman's terms and tell you so. But when you break it down, it is just basic common sense. Most of what is coming out of his mouth and out of his writings, his podcasts, and the proof's in the pudding. The guy is just the followers he has worldwide, and we're not talking just Toronto, just Canada. It's worldwide. He can go on these worldwide tours and fill up halls in London. Oh, just about anywhere. So.
Luke, what's your thoughts?
Yeah, I was just about to say, Quinn, I really respect him as well. I remember seeing the University of Toronto videos from inside of the classroom way back in the day of the actual lectures and just being really captivated by the way he spoke. And I think, as Mickey alluded to, he's someone that really believes, or at least is really grappling with everything that he says. I don't think he's being performative. I think he has a genuine interest and a genuine academic interest in the topics that he covers. So that's always refreshing. I think over the years he's distilled himself a little bit into almost a caricature of himself, just in the way that he's very grand about the way he speaks about things now compared to those early videos that I remember watching back in the day. But I guess that's what being a prominent mind of the 21st century and an academic does to you. Like, the thing that people always rag on him for is that he cries a lot and that he becomes very emotional when he speaks. But my goodness, if you had to spend your day, dealing with these concepts of life and the grander meaning of life and society and all of these things, I think you would end up being pretty emotional too at the end of the day, especially when you're being forced to convey those to people that don't necessarily agree with you. So I've always been a big fan of his. I don't really get the hate on him. Quinn, what do you think?
Well, I think you mentioned a very key word there, Luke. He's grappling, because I think we've seen a lot of his videos where he still is on his own journey to really discover his own faith and, his relationship with Christ and the larger question of Christianity. And Stephen Umbrello is very, clear that Peterson's ideas are a good gateway, but eventually it gets to a point where you almost have to take the next step and go down the rest of the road yourself, and kind of wave to Peterson and leave him behind as he considers his own relationship with Christ, and that's where Lonergan really comes in there. So that's the really important thing, is that we are in the same way walking on this journey in a similar way to Peterson, and he is of course going through his health challenges, and we wish him the best, and we just hope that maybe the way that Christ is revealing himself to Peterson will lead to him having even more interesting revelations when hopefully he comes back into the cultural arena. But I mean, that's the same thing. We've covered quite a bit about how his wife has gone on this journey too.
Well, I don't want to knock. I don't want to knock Jordan down a notch, but we had competing stories almost about Jordan. It came out, I think, about a week or two after his wife converted to Catholicism, and that pretty well blew up our website. The stories we got, it was from one of our freelancers and former reporters, Sheila Dabu Nanato, and the wife actually blew him out of the waters. She got a lot more readers than Jordan did. So, sorry, Jordan, don't want to knock you down, but congratulations to your wife on that. So, well, guys, I think that's going to bring us to the end of another episode of Registered. I'd like to thank you, all of you out there, for joining us. Thanks to you guys, Quinton and Luke. Luke, you enjoy your time off. We hope the smoke will have cleared by then. And remember, for all the Catholic news out there, check out catholicregister.org. And that's where you can also check out how to order your copy of Missions and Martyrs, our new magazine celebrating 100 years of the Martyrs Shrine in Midland, Ontario. It's a real good summer read. I encourage you all to pick up a copy. So thanks again, and we will see you next week.